Like Billy stuffing your face with
You think she brought it in for her first starting spouse? Ray was talking. She's gonna feel herself. We're gonna get me a little tray full. Quite the network goal.
I know.
I'm going to leave some money
Waiting
for
for
it.
instructions.
Well, we're meeting Thursday. We had to wait till we knew who the delegates were. So after Thursday, we'll have it all lined up and all that.
Okay.
I should do that real quick.
Yes.
Candidates. Yes. Meet your candidate. Meet your new representative.
Okay. Yeah, it's the muscles, Andy.
Get back to
See? He needs to get back to the
one
gym.
time in the whole year.
Jordan doesn't do that for you?
Yeah, I have to drive.
Adam and Ray. They have Garcia.
Yeah, my part of my district, one whole township, there's 28 quarters. And the whole 6 by 6 miles
Right.
square.
8 seconds.
Oh.
Yeah, so I did more.
No, imagine that. Okay. There won't be either, you think? You're gonna scare them off?
Welcome. Could I ask everybody to please take a seat? We'll be starting momentarily.
I saw your wife here, so I figured you were here somewhere.
Somewhere around, yeah. You never know where.
I'll see you Thursday.
Sam?
Leia.
Sam? Where's Sam?
Gene. Gene right there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. As usual, we're going to start our meeting with an invocation. Sam Smith will say a few words.
Shall we pray? Our Father, we thank you for this privilege of meeting together to help our country, to work to see clean government, good government. We thank you for leaders that was raised up in times of crisis. Thank you for Abraham Lincoln, many others that thou hast raised up. We pray for leaders today that can lead us to good government, to what we used to be, especially as a Christian nation. So bless our deliberations tonight and guide us and help us to do our part for a good America. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Could we rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Sam. Welcome, new visitors. By the way, somebody told me this afternoon that an organization said that, well, we're a single issue organization. And Gene told me this, and I said, what is that single issue? Is the single issue what we're going to talk about tonight? Awareness of human trafficking and so on. Is it many of the 20 other various issues that we discussed over the last year and a half, 2 years? We are an issue organization. Now, I do see a lot of new faces. If this is your first time ever to a Ottawa County Patriots meeting, could I ask you to please raise your hand? Wow. For those of you, thank you. For those of you who this is your first time here, how did you hear about this meeting? Ray? Through somebody that's here? Anybody heard about it on the radio? Anybody heard about it through the newspaper? Hands? Excellent. There are people that are actually reading that paper. We thank you. And we've got some gifts for you. For those people who are new, raise your hands again, please. Behind you, you missed a few. Keep your hands up.
How many is that?
I don't know. How many did we get there, Judy? I can't.
I didn't see hands. Anybody else, first timers?
Okay.
How many, Judy? I didn't.
Judy, how many?
I didn't count, I don't know.
How many? New people.
Oh, I feel okay.
How many new people?
Raise your hand up again and hold them up so that we can actually count them. Keep it up. Keep them up.
6, 7.
Besides our guests.
8 or 9?
8 or 9. Okay, that's great. That is really, really great.
You want me to guess?
Put down 9. Put down 9.
Okay, put down.
And Sergeant at Arms, what is our count of attendance tonight?
50 right now.
50. Oh, that's great.
I
Okay.
have to count you too.
No, that's all right. You're good. Okay.
Jim?
Jim, we are the Ottawa County.
I just wanted to say that Cal and Linda Dykstra are in Nicaragua working on this very issue tonight.
Cal and Linda Dykstra, who Linda is very involved in this, and she told me about it several times before, and they're in Nicaragua right now trying to rescue other women at risk. So I think it's what Cal and Linda do. They're tireless in it, and I applaud their efforts, whatever they do. We're the Ottawa County Patriots. Are we a tea party? Sort of. We're the issue party. We're not a political party. You're not going to vote on anything here tonight. We're not going to elect anybody, nor are we going to tell you to vote for anyone. Nor are we going to tell you how to think on a particular issue. And in most of the time, when we have an issue, we have speakers, both pro and con. Now, I doubt seriously if we find somebody that was in favor of human trafficking, so we didn't even bother trying to find someone to speak on that. Because if someone were, he'd probably be beat up. Anyhow, that's what we do. Okay, I'm the president. My name is Jim Chiodo. The vice president is Judy Hurdes, the lady who was given out. There she is here. Our secretary is Michael Carras. Our treasurer is Jean Welch. And our sergeant with no arms back here is Carrie Hurdes. Right? We welcome you here. We hope that for first-time visitors that you'll come back again and again. We meet on the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month. And we have it in this facility. That may change down the road, but for now, that's what we're doing. One of the things that we do is we are the Ottawa County Patriots. As such, we have a county and a county government. And some things go on there that some of us aren't aware of. So we have some people that will attend the Ottawa County Commissioners meeting and come in here and report to you what's going on. With that, I'll turn the microphone over to Michael.
Gene, could you bring up the summary chart?
You really want that?
Yeah.
Is that the one you want?
That's the one I want.
Thank you.
I was not the only Ottawa County Patriot attending the meeting this afternoon. Ron was there as well. He asked me after the meeting if all the meetings at the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners are as dull as the one today. He had gone a couple of weeks ago, and if those of you who were there or were at our meeting last 2 weeks ago, the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners meeting was extremely exciting. It was covered by print and radio and television media. They were discussing the Hager Park sign. More on that later. Today, not so much. 10 of the 11 commissioners were there, but they outnumbered everybody else in the room. So they were pretty much talking to themselves. There was one reporter there from the Holland Sentinel. The main focus of attention today was to receive a report on the 2014 equalization report. I don't know, 30-second explanation on what the equalization report is. The various townships, cities, and villages in Ottawa County are responsible for assessing the value of our property taxes. The county is responsible for collecting all of that information, deciding whether the localities did a good job or not, forwarding it on to the state. They also have the opportunity to fix the assessments. They call it equalization. That report was presented to the board today for their consideration. The important things for us is that the value, the assessed value, the equalized value of the property in Ottawa County is now back to what it was in 2008, not accounting for inflation. So the county's worth about $12 billion. I guess that's about 3 minutes worth of debt, federal level. The property tax base for the county is less than that because the municipalities and the townships and the county cannot tax the assessed or equalized value. They can only tax a portion of that, about half of it. So the equalized value or the assessed value is about $12 billion. And the taxable value is about $6 billion. Was one other interesting point. There were 14,000 transactions, property transactions in the last year, 2014. And if somebody sold their property, sold a farm, sold a business, sold a house somewhere in Ottawa County. And that's up significantly over the last several years. So the local economy is recovering slightly. It's not robust by any means, but it is recovering. The county and the state and their sources in the federal government estimate that there will be little or no inflation this year and next. So put that in your personal calculations if you trust the Ottawa County government to predict the inflation rate for the next couple of years. And that's about it. That's all that happened today at the Ottawa Board of Commissioners.
And Mike, you're right. Your report put us to sleep too.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have any no-goes? No. All right.
Oh, you're done. Funny you should say, da-da-da-da, I'm done. Before we start our program, I'm going to recap something that happened earlier starting at 6 o'clock. Our members, okay, now when I say members, I mean the people with a badge on that's printed, okay? And how do those people get those printed badges? They're a paying member, okay? We're going to be passing the bucket around later, as we usually do. But something that's somewhat significant, last year we had $4,000 in income, donations, etc. Isn't that great? We had $6,000 in expenses. It doesn't take an Einstein to tell you that you can't go on. It's not sustainable. That's the word they use. And a number of people in this room are members. And our membership is $20 per year per person or $30 per year per couple. And if you have not paid your membership dues, we really, really appreciate it, okay? That membership dues and the bucket is how we get our money. And where does our money go? Well, it goes towards having speakers come in. Oftentimes, we have somebody from the other side of the state, and we have a hotel, motel, travel, and so on and so forth. There are various expenses and so on. It's something that's near and dear to us, and as you can see, 4,000 in, 6,000 out, the math don't add up. Pretty soon we'll be in $17 trillion in debt. Okay.
18.
I do want to, and the person you want to see is that man in the yellow hat in the back of the room. Not you? Yes, you'll take care of the membership dues?
No, he will.
Okay, Gene, but between the two of them, you go back there and he'll chase you down, okay? Thank you very much. And at this point, I want to turn this microphone over to the man with a beer cooler under his arm. And he will introduce our guests. Could we have our panelists sit at these tables here, please?
Yeah, that's, we're gonna.
Jim, is this your briefcase? Jim, is this your briefcase?
Yeah. Squeak, squeak. Whatever you, however you want them sitting, you tell them. Let's get this thing out of the way. Let's get Mike.
Over there.
We'll push it over there.
Yeah. Put it over on the other side of this table.
Stupid wheels don't push for it.
No, one of them's breaks on.
Squeaky wheel. Squeaky wheel. We'll post the grease, I think.
WD-40.
And you can have this thing too if you want it.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Everybody, does everybody like my custom outfit for tonight? The accessories are by Allen Hospital. The customized shirt is by Joanne Paul. It's the only way we can make it stay on. Anyhow, tonight's about awareness of human trafficking. Quite a lot of information is being passed out at the present time in a lot of areas. 2 weeks ago on MSNBC at Sunday night, they had, I believe it was a 2-hour event. This past Sunday night it was on again. I don't know if it's going to be on this coming Sunday or not. Quite interesting. They rescued a lot of those girls. Some of them were real prostitutes, and that's how they made their living. But a lot of them, the police tried to help them. And check it out this Sunday night, MSNBC. I think it's 8 or 9 o'clock. It's quite interesting. Anyhow, tonight I'm going to start off with introducing our senator, Senator Judy Emmons. She's a 5th-generation dairy farmer, according to the internet.
All true.
Okay. She is married with 3 kids and 3 grandchildren. She has served many years in the education field in Montcalm County with the Board of Education. She has served 3 terms in the House of Representatives, and in 2010 you were elected to the Senate. She has served on many committees related to family and human services.
I pick a chair? Pick a chair.
Okay, the next speaker is going to be Captain Jack Dykstra of the Holland Police Department, better known as Holland Public Service, I believe. Department of Public Safety. Okay. Okay. You've been involved with the police since 1987, I believe. You became a captain in 2012. And it says on the internet you have 43 uniformed officers and 53 reserve officers that report to you. Let's see, you're also serving in a leadership role in special teams such as SWAT teams, K-9s, evidence technicians, community policing, and victim services. Would you please come forward? Okay, Rebecca McDonald, she's the one that started the war organization. At the age of 14, you were involved with a violent crime. A friend of yours was found wounded, raped, and unable to talk because of the acid that they forced her to drink. Because of that, you decided you wanted to become a voice for the voiceless. In 2006, you started the Women at Risk International. In 2008, you opened up your first store in Rockford, correct? And it was called the War Chest Boutique. And after that, she has started many war organizations, one in every state, and I think 50, you told me tonight, 45 different countries. Okay, where'd you come from? I asked Becky to start off first to speak, and when you're done, you just pass it on to Jack, and he can pass it on to Judy, but you have to hold the mic really close.
Thank you all for
Becky,
coming
before
out.
we start, could we see if we could improve the mic, the sensitivity of the mic so that she doesn't have to swallow it? Is there a way we can do that?
That's okay, I'll rest it on my chin. Then my hand won't shake. Okay. Thank you all for coming out tonight, seriously. Unfortunately, this will not be boring. This will be heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching, and a good news, bad news scenario. As you were already told by Ray, I learned at an early age that women and children are at risk, men, women, and children, actually in every culture of the world. I was 5 when my father, a surgeon who got his training in Grand Rapids, Michigan at St. Mary's Hospital, took me and my brothers to the land of East Pakistan. And I grew up in East Pakistan and went to boarding school in West Pakistan. And at the age of 14, the country of East Pakistan went through a civil war, and my 14-year-old girlfriend was raped and fought back. And to teach her, as Ray said, that you have no voice, you are a woman, how dare you fight back. Instead of throwing acid in her face, which is more common, they poured it down her throat and took her voice away forever. And God used that in my life to burn a hole in my heart and set me on a pathway of being the voice of the silenced woman or child. And yes, we do rescue men as well. They are vulnerable, as children especially. We have 3 of our safe houses are for all men, but mostly the cultures of the world prey on vulnerable whatever. And what we're learning is that the story that I learned in my life, that women and children were at risk in Asia, is true here. Now, the passion and the mission statement of Women at Risk International is to create circles of protection around women and children at risk and give them a safe place where they can rewrite the story of their life. And so yes, we are in 45 countries. We have 171 programs, and the Dykstras are at one of them in Nicaragua, where they have 440 women that come and make jewelry 1 day a week. Imagine managing 440 women making jewelry. It's wild chaos. They have 98 that live at that safe house, and Dr. Dykstra goes there and helps with a counseling program. 7 years ago, I received a call in Grand Rapids, Michigan, from Homeland Security in the Detroit area. They were coming to West Michigan, to Grand Rapids, 3 times a week because human trafficking was so bad there. Now, Women at Risk International addresses 14 different risk issues. We are most known for our fight against human trafficking because all of our product, 3,300 products, are made in our safe houses or in our preventative programs in their anti-trafficking. Women shop, and so that's how we're known for that issue above all else. But I've been addressing honor killings, domestic violence, acid attacks, female circumcision, AIDS, rape, you name it, for 30 years professionally as a grown-up. And our programs around the world step into the issue of human trafficking, which is the fastest growing arm of crime. We all know how bad guns and drugs are, don't we? Imagine something worse than that. That's what this is. It is a wildfire of epic proportions. It is across every socioeconomic level, from the poorest to the richest. The Swedish ambassador's wife was trafficked. There is no demographic group that is not spied on or in the crosshairs of a trafficker. And the average age in this country is around 12 to 14. Overseas, it's more like 7, 8, 9. And 7 years ago, when Homeland Security called me, I had just shared with them that the face of trafficking internationally was becoming babies, literally babies. We had just rescued a 1-month-old who had been sold at 2 weeks for $200, and it wasn't for adoption. It's for the sex market and the organ donor on the black market. And at that time they said, yes, they were looking then for a 6-month-old advertised on the internet from Pensacola, Florida. You could sign up to watch a live feed of an anal rape of a 6-month-old. That was the land of the free. I started visiting all the major cities in America and interviewing law enforcement. I went to Las Vegas, Miami, and all the major places. Toledo, Ohio, by the way, is the 4th highest city in America for trafficking. And started looking into this in the land of the free. Because I grew up with the Taliban. And I love this country and what it stands for. And I could not believe what I was hearing. 300,000 minors? In West Michigan alone, 2,400 minors are for sale at any given time, according to the government. In our area, in our counties, 2,400 children. I'm not even talking about those that are over 18. I'm talking about children. And what I learned was in the land of the free, we prey on our babies. And it's a carnage of the innocent. And this is a cry from a mother's heart, from my heart to yours, to circle your cradle. And to be that circle of protection to those you love. I started studying the United States, and Women at Risk discovered that there are roughly 15 demographics that draw the eye of a trafficker to a community. And Grand Rapids, West Michigan, has 12 of them. Now Holland has a unique extra one that I don't include when I talk about Grand Rapids. But we have 12 of the 15 demographics in West Michigan alone. We teach this on civilian first responder training, and there's a brochure in your packet called Seeing the Unseen. And that brochure is specifically about domestic trafficking in the United States of America. The next time we teach that is March 27th at the Pinnacle Center. And you can go on our website if you're interested in that. We bring in law enforcement, Homeland Security, FBI, survivors, healthcare professionals. I've taught this at Hershey Medical Center. I'll be teaching it with Spectrum Health. I've taught it at Fort Bragg. I'm going to the Pentagon. And so wherever people want to hear this information, wherever they're open to learning and opening their eyes to this hidden evil and this wildfire that is rampant in all our communities, middle class, upper middle class as well, we address that and we teach how to know the signs, how to know how to respond and how not to respond, very important, and then how to share this with your circle of influence in an age-appropriate way. There's a right way and a wrong way to talk about this subject. And throwing vomit at people just makes them run for cover. So if this was church, I would talk about a 6-month-old. But your grown-ups here, you need to hear it from me, because that's what I heard from our law enforcement in this country that they were looking for. As young as 2 weeks old, a 14-year-old went to a sleepover in Pensacola, Florida. This was on MSNBC years ago, and was sold for $300,000 on the internet. Women at Risk International is simply an organization of men and women who circle and find women and children at risk and give them a safe place to rewrite the story of their life, help them start over, and help them find a way to support themselves with dignity. You cannot rescue a woman, pat her on her head, send her on her way, and say, go do something nice. She's been chained to a wall in Nicaragua, where Linda is right now, a 7-year-old was chained to a wall for 11 months with a shackle around her neck to the wall in the backyard and sold to whoever came to the front door. What do you think she thinks she can do when she's rescued? The real work begins at rescue. It doesn't end at rescue. The aftercare is the journey to wholeness and healing. You must empower these girls by giving them, and men and children, real education and real jobs. 90% of the women in Cambodia that get picked up in a police raid and sent home without job training get resold. You cannot just rescue women. You have to walk that journey alongside them. And that is what Women at Risk is committed to doing. Right now at our headquarters in Grand Rapids, Michigan, we have been beta testing for almost 2 years now 6 women who we rescued from West Michigan. All their stories are different. Some of them I've taken to be eyewitnesses, testify before the Senate. When Judy calls me and says, I have a bill coming up, I need an expert witness, she's telling me to come, and I tell her, I am not an expert, but I know the girls who are, and they're eyewitnesses, and I will bring them, and they will say what they have seen. Our U.S. Training Center just got a grant, $720,000 grant, that is a matching grant. My husband calls that a grunt. That means we have to do the grunt work of raising half of it to get the other half. But this is to build the U.S. Training Center and expand the rescue of American women and children around the world. We rescue women in 3 different ways. We go to them at what we call outreach, is what the government calls it overseas as well. And we just, for example, in Grand Rapids or in Thailand, we go into the bars, woman to woman, and we will, in Thailand, sit at a table by women 20 minutes off the pole or whatever is going on in the room, and just hear her story and say, how can I pray for you? What's going on in your life? Do you have needs? You have a black and blue spot? What happened to you? Do you need stitches? Can I take you to the hospital? Just build a relationship with her. She doesn't understand why you care, but she knows that you care because you're not buying her, and we're the safe table. And so they flock to our table. We're just loving on them unconditionally, saying, you know, if you ever want to make a living in a different way, call the number on the back of this card. And by the way, I'm 57. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I have yet to meet a woman who's what they call a voluntary prostitute. Because I'm not buying, they tell me the truth. I have yet to meet her. When I meet her, I will ask her, how's that working out for you? And what can I do to help you? I will not shun her. But we go, we meet with the women, and we identify those women who are there against their will. And we offer them a way out. We don't say, honey, you're going to die of AIDS, run. That's just heaping more shame on them. So we offer them a way to make a living. So all the product back there is made either in our safe houses by rescue women or in our preventative programs by women who are targeted by the trafficker. Something about their story means they're exponentially at risk. Their sister was sold, they're next. Or they've been raped, or they're abandoned, or they're handicapped, or they're a widow at 15 or 88, I don't really care, or they're an orphan. Something about them means they're exponentially at risk. So our programs include both preventative programs and curative programs. This is an example up here. By the way, all our jewelry is real pearls. Guys, Valentine's is coming up. If you offer me $20 tonight to rescue a woman, I'm going to tell you, keep your money. Go buy an $18 pearl pendant for someone you love. Because a week, a month, a year from now, the pain of giving up $20 will be over, and you will forget that woman. But if you put a piece of her into your life and around your body, and you pay her for the work of her hands, you're not giving her a handout. This is not welfare. This is she's working. She deserves to be paid for the work of her hands. And you buy a real pearl pendant for $20, you will never forget her. And I want your heart, not your money. So there is that opportunity for you there. The second way that we rescue people is preventative. And one of my favorite stories preventatively is this is a partnership we have with the Queen of Thailand. Her relative is my friend. She teaches women to hand paint each one of these cards with stories on the back. The women she hires are all from the slums, and so that's a preventative example. This is what I call a nasty bracelet. You grandmas, your kids wear these till they rot, your grandkids wear these till they rot off their body. I prefer pearls. That's just nasty, but whatever I mock sells. And I just came from the Philippines where Congressman Huizenga asked me to go and visited another partner there. We've had this partnership for years. 700 families, the moms, make these. And it supports a whole village where plane loads go for sexual tourism of children. And this supports all their school tuition, a training center, daycare program after school, all their books, all their uniforms, all their exam fees. That's an example for you of a preventative program. The final way is what we're doing tonight. It's the supportive. It's opening your mouth and being the voice of the silenced woman or child. The FBI conducted a 6-month pre-Super Bowl sting. Wow, I am so thankful. 7 years ago, when I was in Miami talking to Homeland Security, I was telling them, you know there's going to be trafficking at all these big events, Art Prize, Super Bowls, PGA tournaments, political conventions, both sides. You know this is happening. Why aren't you doing it preventatively? And at this Super Bowl in Arizona, the FBI did a pre-sting, and they arrested 350 buyers, 26 children were rescued, 180 trafficked adults were rescued, and 60 traffickers. A coalition of 37 agencies did a 2-week sting, and 570 buyers were arrested, 22 traffickers were picked up, and 90%, the FBI says 90% of these children and people for sale were on the internet. Art Prize, wonderful, wonderful event. But anything successful draws the eye of a trafficker who's there for money. And so we've been watching Art Prize quietly behind the scenes for 2 years. And we've been watching the numbers, Backpage, Craigslist. These are the places where children and women are for sale. 50% increase on the Saturday pre-Art Prize of minors, based on clues that law enforcement knows indicate, they don't say we're selling a baby. There's clues there that are known in the industry. A 50% jump in numbers on the first Friday, and 50% of the ads changed from what they normally said to up-class women for sale. So we have an up-class clientele, Grand Rapids, whatever that means. So I'm here to tell you that what we're doing is not rocket science. That's the good news. And women all over the world, children, some men, are being rescued, putting their lives back together, working with dignity, and sometimes rise up to be giants, find their voice, and run our safe houses. And I love it that our women work with real pearls. We tell them, you know, you're just like the pearl. The Creator God wove into creation a story of hope in the face of crisis. The little clam sits in the bottom of the ocean, and an attack comes along, an unfair attack, and it has 2 choices. It can fight it and be a mutant, or it can wrap it in layers and layers and layers of beauty and create a pearl of great price. And we too, as men and women in life, when life attacks us unfairly, have 2 choices. We can fight it and be a mutant, or we can wrap it in layers of beauty and become a pearl of great price and rise up and do for somebody else what nobody has done for us. In your brochure, there's a thing on trafficking in the U.S., and it gives Michigan an F. Senator Emmons is going to talk to you about legislation that is going to change that grade. We probably won't get an A. I hope we get a B. There's no state that has an A right now. It's a federally funded grading system based on how well resourced we are. We're making a lot of progress in Michigan. We have a lot further to go, but my goal and my motto is progressive improvement is better than delayed perfection. So I'm thrilled with every advance we're making legislatively as one piece of the puzzle. And I'm going to turn this over to you.
That's compelling, and I want to speak from a standpoint of local law enforcement and speak about trafficking. And one thing I'd like to start with is that sex trafficking is what we often think of, but labor trafficking is just as much an issue. And I want you to know that Ottawa County has the largest population of migrants in the summer during the growing season, and there's as much an issue with labor trafficking as there is of sex trafficking, and often the two are combined. The issue, and Judy will talk about the law, and I won't steal any thunder from her, but force, fraud, or coercion are the three aspects of trafficking that law enforcement is looking at. Whether or not someone was coerced, fraud, or coercion. And the laws have changed significantly in Michigan already to help law enforcement. When I started in law enforcement 25 years ago, we looked at the prostitutes as the women that were making choices in that vein, and that's not the case. I see myself from Holland and from West Michigan standpoint as being responsible to make sure that law enforcement understands that the victims are those that are being trafficked, and we have to look at who the customers are. We have to look at things in a totally different perspective than what we did 25 years ago and even 10 years ago. This type of crime is not the type of crime victim is gonna walk in the front door of the police department. They're not gonna walk in and say, I'm a victim of trafficking. The reason I'm here tonight as well is to let you know and give you a face for the Holland Police Department and for any agency in Ottawa County. You may call me. Because if you get involved in this effort to help these women at risk, and men at risk, boys at risk as well, if you get involved, you are the ones that are going to introduce that person that you've brought along and developed a relationship with to come to law enforcement to prosecute those that are responsible for the crime. And it's a side door type of victim that's going to come in through a group like WAR, social service agencies, a church group, a church volunteer, someone that's trained that can bring a person and bring them to a point where they can be introduced to law enforcement to begin the process of prosecution. The laws have changed significantly to give us more tools to not hold the crimes that a victim might have been required to commit against them. It has given us an opportunity to help them from the standpoint of being a victim first, rather than looking at the crimes that are associated with that. So if you find yourself with no one to call in law enforcement, consider myself as someone that you can call to help that victim be introduced into the prosecution and the investigation standpoint of that crime. The problem is if you call 911, you're going to get a uniformed officer that responds there. And trust me, we're doing our best here in West Michigan to train law enforcement to understand the issues of trafficking and understand the issues of victims, but we still have a ways to go. And we have to remember that that uniform represents, it's very intimidating to that victim. And so you need to have contacts locally that you can say, Captain Dykstra, I've got a situation, can I run this by you? How can we help this person come to a point where they can testify and bring these people that are responsible for for what they've been involved in, hold them accountable. So that's where I'll leave it at this point in time. I know there's question and answer later, and I'll turn it over to Judy.
Well, I really appreciate the turnout tonight and for the invitation. This is not one of those topics that people seek because it's a pretty dark topic. And Becky's kind of laid out the scenario for you, not only internationally, but here in America and in Michigan. And Ray, you sounded incredulous when you said we were dairy farmers, but we are.
I'm more on the farm.
Okay. You know, I represent the middle of the state. My counties that are in my Senate district are Montcalm, Isabella, Gratiot, Clare, and Mecosta. So kind of right up the middle of the state. And very rural. We are ag country, and that's what we do, primarily small industries, some manufacturing, things like that. But, and people in my district wonder, how did you get involved in this? Whatever possessed you to take up this issue and pursue this? And for me, I chaired the Family, Seniors, and Human Services Committee in the Senate. And one of my veteran friends who lived down the road a piece from me stopped at my house about 3.5, almost 4 years ago, and dropped off a book. And it was entitled The Slave Across the Street. And he knew we had been looking at correcting some of the errors in our legislation regarding human trafficking in Michigan. We enacted a law in 2006, and it really was a basic law reflective of the federal statute. And it talked about force, fraud, and coercion, and that's pretty much what it did. The fines were minimal, the jail time was minimal, and somewhere in translation, kids who were 15 and 16 years old were not covered. They were not protected. So we were going to just utilize that and correct that, increase the fines, increase the penalties, and increase the prison time and make it a felony. In the process of doing that, we started doing the research. And when Ben dropped off this book, I thought, oh, this isn't going to be a fun read. And so I didn't read it right away. I actually put it aside for a while. But when I picked it up, it told of the story of a young girl in Michigan, in suburban, wealthy area of Detroit and Birmingham, who was trafficked in our state in a wealthy area when she was 15. And we're going back to the 80s. And she wasn't trafficked in the traditional sense that you and I, and what I thought of at that point in time, in that somebody kidnapped her or somebody sold her. No. She was taken to a home, she accepted a ride, and she knows it was a mistake. She was taken to a home, her coke was drugged, and she was raped. Photographs were taken of her. And she told no one. They took her home, she didn't tell her mother, and she admits that's the biggest mistake she made. She told no one, just wanted to put it behind her. And about a week later, the individual, the rapist, came up to her with an envelope and said to her, you're going to have to earn these back. And inside were photographs. Now in her mind, she's thinking, photographs, it'll show that I'm being raped. But she was drugged. She wasn't fighting back. And they said, my cousin was there, he took these photos, you will have to earn them back, and if you don't, we'll take them to your dad, and they named his place of work, we'll take them to his boss. Your brothers are at risk, as is your whole family. And so she's thinking like a 15-year-old. And so in her mind, she's thinking, well, then I'm going to probably have to do his homework, I'll have to wash his car, walk his dog, whatever, as you would think of when you're a 15-year-old earning something back. But that wasn't what they intended at all. And what they did was they would pick her up at her home. She would sneak out the glass door, go around the block, and they'd pick her up on the corner, and she would be auctioned off. And this happened multiple nights of the week. And she still thought in her mind that at some point she would earn those pictures back and it would be over. And of course, it wasn't, because she was so lucrative. The money they made off from her was tremendous, and of course, it was all tax-free. So this went on for 2 years, from the time she was 15 to 17. She got out of it because her family moved. Her dad was transferred. He was an executive in a company, and they were transferred. And when she realized they were moving, she instructed her next oldest brother. The other ones were young enough that they weren't aware, but she thought her next youngest brother knew something wasn't quite right. And she instructed him not to tell anybody where they were moving. And that worked. That was fine. Now let me fast forward. This was in the 80s. She went on to college. She struggled with this the entire time. She went on and married. She had children. She went into a career of social work and ultimately ended up employed as a social worker. And she went to attend a seminar because one of her colleagues who was supposed to attend couldn't go that day, so they sent her instead. And presenting at that seminar was Homeland Security, and they were talking about human trafficking. And finally, after all these years, she had a name to what she endured. And that opened the door for her. She's still healing. I don't know that you ever stop healing from a situation like that. But she is now one of the premier experts in the state of Michigan, Ohio, the entire country actually, and internationally. And she has made this her goal. And I will tell you, her name is Teresa Flores, and she started a program whereby for Art Prize, we were involved on that, the auto show, wherever there's a bit, the NCAA Final Four, wherever there are groups of people that come into town, tourists, and distribute these soaps to the hotel rooms, because every hotel room is required to have this in their restrooms, in those rooms. And on the back, there's a sticker that's placed on there, and it says, are you being forced to do anything you do not want to do? Have you been threatened if you try to leave? Have you witnessed young girls being prostituted? If so, please call, and the number is 888-3737-888. Now that number is on the back of your brochure that we handed out with all the legislation we completed this last term. And it is the National Human Trafficking Hotline, and it is based in Washington, D.C. I believe the Polaris Project oversees that hotline. And they will tell you that when the auto show was in Detroit and when Art Prize is here in West Michigan, they do get a significant increase in calls. So this last January, actually it's ironic that when we do this project in Detroit in southeast Michigan, it is also the weekend that is National Human Trafficking Day. And we put together the soaps and we take them to the hotels all around the Detroit area. This last year, people were recognizing individuals that were on the posters that show missing children, missing persons. They recognized them. They actually witnessed a transaction occurring in a hotel, and that child was rescued, as well as a few others. So we know it's working. It seems minimal, anecdotal, but we know that we're making some progress, and we just need more tools, and we just need that everyone out there who's anywhere to see what's going on around them. I just want to tell you of some instances that we have learned in our legislation and through the process of doing the research. Because Becky is absolutely right. It crosses all boundaries, socioeconomic, cultural, all boundaries. And if you think because we're in West Michigan or rural Michigan, it does occur here. Situation with foster kids in a county north of us, not very far north of us, whereby some public officials were actually trafficking those foster care children out of their home. Those officials are now in prison, and the kids were rescued. The last place you would have thought something like that happened. My chief of staff, Laura Toy, is here. She is from, I hate to tell you, Wayne County. And situation down there in a suburb next to her, a guy, he's a family man. He has 2 kids. He coaches soccer. He has a job. And he also, in the next suburb over, has a house where he's trafficking 2 women, making $4,000 a week extra. He was arrested. He's now in prison. We have situations where we have a tree trimmer we knew. His cousin told us of this story. He was trimming trees. He was at a residence. He prepared the bill in his truck, and he goes up to the door to present the bill to the owner. And as he's approaching the door, you're thinking I'm making this up. These are all first-hand accounts that have been told to us. He sees this little arm come out from under the siding, and he hears a voice say, "Help us, help us." And he's taken back, so he goes back to his truck, and he sits there for a second, and he thinks, oh, these people know where I am, they know my business, they know where I'm located, but what do you do? So he calls the police. He waits till they get there. They arrest the individuals in the house. They take out 2 men, 3 or 4 little kids. And the discouraging thing for them, for this tree trimmer, his family, was they never knew what happened. They never saw anything in the news. They never saw where there were any court charges. They never saw anything. And they wanted to know if anything was ever done. And I think that's part of our challenge, not only as legislators, but all of us here in the state, that we want to know if what we're doing makes a difference, and we want to be able to train folks and help people understand what they're seeing. And if you stop to think about it, it's not just the tree trimmer, it's the cable guy, it's the plumber, it's the first responders, it's the bus driver. It's everywhere. It's wherever people gather. So that's part of what we've been doing the last few years in our office. And this brochure really pulls together all the legislation that was originated in the Senate and the House, and what was signed by Governor Snyder. And actually, to address a certain particular topic and get this many pieces of legislation passed and signed into law is actually pretty significant. Now, you will say to yourself, who in the world would ever vote against a bill that addresses human trafficking? And I can tell you that there are people who just don't get it and don't want to admit it. I have individuals come up to me and say, so, what's the difference between this and somebody who chooses to do this for a living? And we had to help educate them, didn't we, Becky? And because we know from the research we've done and the folks we talk to that most of the time, probably, I would say 99.999%, an individual, if somebody is being trafficked, they were probably abused as a child. It started as a child. We know of individuals who were sold, she and her sister were sold to hunting cabins in northern Michigan during the hunting season. That's what they did. And it was their family that sold them. And that's what we find in our state, that a lot of families will sell their children for drug money, for rent money, for whatever. Which really, if you're doing it for rent money, that shouldn't be happening, because we have programs in the state to help you with those situations. So we really focused our legislation in the Senate on survivors. They're the experts. They're the ones that really know what's going on underground. And we wanted to go to them and find out what it was that we were missing and what we needed to address. So actually, my favorite piece of all these laws is the piece that addresses the statute of limitations. Prior to the passage of this bill, in Michigan, if you were trafficked, you had 6 years from the time you were trafficked And you had to recognize it within that time period to go after the individual who trafficked you and sold you. And for Teresa, she's a prime example. She was trafficked when she was 15. She didn't come to terms or understanding until she was in her 40s. Well, the statute of limitations had long run out. She could not go after her traffickers. And we know they're still in Michigan. They're still there. And they're probably still trafficking. So what we did, we wanted to totally eliminate it. In Michigan, help me, the only crimes that have no statute of limitations is first-degree criminal sexual conduct and first-degree murder. So we wanted this to be the third one. We didn't get there because for whatever reason, we know that prosecutors, they want to win cases, and we want them to win cases. And they tell us that the longer the crime is in the past, the more difficult it is to prosecute the case. However, remember, a prosecutor always has the choice of whether they prosecute or not. So I'm saying, if you have no statute of limitations, you still have that choice as to whether you prosecute or not. But the art of negotiation is important when you're trying to write laws. So we negotiated. And I said, okay, if you won't give me no statute of limitations, I'll take 30 years. And basing that really on Teresa's experience. We settled for 25. So that's what we ended up with. And that's, you know, we can always go back and work on that again. But that's what it is now, and it's far better than 6 years. And then some of the additional laws that were included in this, you mentioned those that can go back who were forced or pushed to commit crimes when they're juveniles or when they were being forced to sell themselves. Those individuals can come back, and we've spoken with people, survivors who are now pursuing this because of this law, that they can go back and get those crimes expunged from their record. Their records can be cleared because of the situation they were in. The one piece that really surprised me, because when we started this, everyone, and let me just say, many of the folks that I work with did not want Johns to register on the sex offender registry. They were very, very uncomfortable with that. And by the time we got to pursuing this in last fall wasn't really in lame duck, but it was getting close, that sailed right through. And I will tell you, I do believe that was a miracle. It sailed right through. Nobody said anything. Nobody came forward. Not one thing was an impediment to that piece of legislation going through. So that alone is a big piece of this, because I will tell you, we're business people on the west side of the state. We get it. If there's no demand for the product, nobody's going to produce the product. Nobody's going to sell a product there's no demand for. If you can eliminate the demand for trafficked individuals, you'll eliminate it. We're not there yet, but we're going to keep trying. And now once we recognize survivors, now our challenge is to provide housing. There is no housing to get them back on their feet. You're doing that in Nicaragua and other places as well. Yes, you are. That's right. And that is what we need. These people want to be successful. They are survivors, and bless them for surviving, and they can thrive given the opportunity to pull their life back together, to make a difference, and that's their goal, and we want to help them do that. So more legislation to come, but I can't say enough about the folks in the state of Michigan. We work with many people around the state. Becky has always been willing to come whenever we've called, and we're just grateful. My husband and I were talking the other day. I'm going to give you a little trivia question, and you can tell me if you think I'm right or not, and if you have a better answer, I'd love to hear it. So we're thinking, go back in history. Who do you believe was the very first trafficked victim? Think about it. In history. What do you think, Barb?
Lot's daughter.
Say that again.
Lot's daughter.
Lot's daughter. But okay, I didn't even think of Lot's daughter. See, I was thinking of Joseph.
Or Queen Esther.
So plenty of good company, actually, when you think about it. And we want to make sure that if you're interested, we want to make sure that you stay informed and help us with this cause. Because I'll tell you what, we wouldn't have gotten these bills passed without great input from people around the state. There was the point when it was very iffy when we got our final bill passed on the very last day. And that's to set up a board within the Department of Community Health for the medical profession to develop protocols, to be able to recognize what they're seeing. And it's really a key piece on the front lines of combating this. We got it passed on the last day. And the reason we got it passed is because we had folks around the state that we could call and say, this may not go, and we will be back to square one. And they got on the horn, and they called, and they emailed, and it went through. So we're grateful. So we do have some cards that we do not share your information with anyone. We do not give you any other emails other than what has to do with these particular bills with the trafficking agenda. We respect your privacy enough to do that. But if you're interested, we do have those cards, and we do have more of these brochures. And we're just grateful that you have an interest in this and that we're all going to make a difference. So thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to take a couple-minute break there, and Jim's going to pass the bucket. As he said, freedom's not free.
The treasurer's gonna.
I am quite speechless after this program. We are going to pass our buckets around. Give what you can. Appreciate it. I want you to be aware of what Becky said. There's a number of products in the back of the room. I also want you to take somebody's heart home with you, so to speak. Thank you. And I think in a moment or two when we're finished, we're going to take questions for the panel.
Right.
Okay, at this time, we're ready to take some questions, and you can address anyone in the panel here to see. Okay, call out who you want to ask a question, and we'll try to keep them short and brief so we can get as many questions in as possible. Okay, we have other events to do yet tonight.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to use the mic or?
Yeah.
First off, thanks for coming out tonight, and I'll let you guys decide who best to answer the question. As a father of 2 young girls, what are some steps that I can take to make sure that my kids aren't in a situation where they'd be at a higher risk?
I'll start. You can finish. Because that is an excellent question. I'll stand up. As we worked on this the last few years, we've recognized, because it is an intrinsic human trait, everybody wants to feel valued and validated. We all require that. We all crave that. And just from my perspective as a mother, a grandmother, and especially you as a dad of daughters, you need to make them feel that they are so special to you, that they're not going to look for it anywhere else, and nobody else will turn their heads. That you think they're pretty, that they're valued, that they're precious, that you love them, that no one will, well, frankly, no one will love them like you love them because you are their dad. And I think that's where you start, and you can take it from there.
Watch the movie Chosen. That's a great resource as well. It's available at the Holland Rescue Mission. Contact me. But when I saw that movie, I'm a father of 3 children, or 3 daughters as well, and I thought in the one case in particular on that video, a girl that was targeted by someone that came into the restaurant where she was a waitress and just started to strike up a conversation, started an interest in her, and took advantage of that, and the naivety of his daughter, this girl, led her to a situation where she was subjected to, she actually got out of it just before it got really bad. But so I think that what Judy said is absolutely true. Keeping an open communication, asking your daughters about, so who came into work today? Who talked to you? And just starting those conversations, just remembering that there are predators out there that look like they have good intentions, but they don't. And those questions we need to remind our daughters that there are people out there like that. And watching that movie would definitely be an eye-opener for them as well.
I could talk for hours on this subject. I grew up with the Taliban. I had all brothers, and many of my friends who grew up with the same situation, when they went back as adults, like I did with my husband, who had a PhD in international development, had nervous breakdowns because they had bought the message, even though they were Americans, that they were nothing as women. And so I look at my own life, and what destroyed my girlfriends made me strong. And we've often laid awake at night at reunions and asked ourselves, what's the difference? Why did this make Becky strong and make you have a nervous breakdown? And the one thing we keep looking at is my father and how he treated me. The message at home was so much more powerful than the message outside my door. I knew that those men were idiots. I was not a piece of meat. I was not a product for sale. And my father treated me, I was the only girl, I was a princess, and he was generation bound, so there was some, I could grow up and be a nurse. He was a doctor, so he wasn't perfect. But I knew that I was valuable. And so that message was so strong in my head that I just knew they were idiots. And I would say to you in America, the message to your daughters outside the door is that they are the sum total of their externals. The Hooters jokes, the media, everything coming out of Hollywood, everything in these kids' heads is that they are the sum total, girls are the sum total of their externals. You're pretty. No. Tell them they're smart. Tell them they're talented. Tell them they're gifted. Look at the things that they're good at and build up who they are on the inside, their character, the things they have control over. If you're beautiful, you can lose that in a flash. And so build up who they are as a person, as a dad, because my dad did that for me. And that helped me stand against the Taliban and crazy brothers who I adore. But seriously, I look at that in my own life, and that to me is the hinge. So self-esteem is huge. And just be so intentional as a parent. And don't just know the guys in your girls' lives, know the girls in your girls' lives. Because the newest cutting edge of trafficking America is 15 to 18-year-old cool girls at school recruiting 9 and 10-year-old girls to go to an oral sex party. They don't know that's what it is. Upper middle class suburbia, and they can't drive themselves home. And that happened in New Jersey. And know that your children's perspective of you, unfortunately, is your reality. You know you're safe. You're a good dad, or you wouldn't have asked that question. But if your daughters can't come to you with your worst nightmare, then they won't. They'll go to that idiot in the mall or that guy in the restaurant. So be unshockable as a parent. Raise your children, and it's hard in West Michigan because we only talk about icky stuff, right? And so it's hard to raise our children to be safe in telling us their worst nightmare, your worst nightmare. So we have got to do that. And the last thing is volunteer young. Children, when they're little, believe everything you say, Dad. If you tell them the sky's made out of cottage cheese, they're going to believe you. So fill their brain with everything you can now, because the minute they hit teenage years, you're a stupid parent and you know nothing overnight. And so volunteer at the Holland Mission or at a domestic abuse shelter, or come to Grand Rapids and put price tags on these nasty bracelets or something with your daughters. Teach them young in conversations before it gets yucky. I don't know how old your girls are, But you have to start these conversations like side to side, not face to face. So side to side, when you're sitting at a table, why are we here? Why are we helping these women? Somebody bad attacked them, somebody hurt them, somebody told them they weren't valuable. Don't you ever let anybody tell you those kind of conversations.
Okay, who has a question totally different? Okay.
Becky, you mentioned that there are 15 demographics to an area that make them the highest risk, I believe. And you said at least 12 of those are in Grand Rapids alone. Oh, and then you mentioned something unusual about Holland. But, so could you at least give us some of those?
Holland would actually have 13, not 12, and the 13th would be the migrant farming community. I always tell that last, because if you tell that first, everybody says, oh, those nasty foreigners. And that is not the case. And yes, migrant farming, you're going to see a lot of labor trafficking, and that's where labor and sex trafficking go together. But migrant farming is an exploitable community because they're away from home and blah, blah, blah. And so definitely also in Holland, you have gangs. And we don't really have gangs in Grand Rapids. I mean, there's always gangs, but when I talk about gangs, I'm talking about connected, like the Holland Latin Kings is connected to Chicago, which I think is the second or third largest gang in America. So you might be over here, but you're connected to Chicago. So Holland actually is unique because you're closer to the water, so you've got the tourism thing going on, and you've got the gang thing going on, and you've got the migrant thing going on. So actually, you're worse off here than Grand Rapids. But those are just some examples for you.
So what are some of the other 15?
So tourism is one, migrant farming is another, international or globalization. So Grand Rapids is not globalized, neither is Holland. But Toledo is because they share a border with Canada, or New York, or Chicago, or big cities. I don't know if I said tourism. Secrecy is definitely so in the Muslim world, where you can't even, if a boy flirts with you, your family may conduct an honor killing against you because a boy flirted with you, even though you rebuffed him. So to tell something nasty in that culture, on a scale of 1 to 100, secrecy is way bigger in a Muslim culture than it is in America. But the Midwest, on a scale of 1 to 100, is worse off than California because we silence our families here when there's icky stuff we don't want. Nice girls don't talk about stuff like that. Well, hello, how do you think we learn about it if someone doesn't teach us? One of my friends said, Becky, when you speak to Christians, tell them to raise their children to be as wise as a serpent, not dumb as a dove. She said, I fell into the sewer because I didn't know it existed. She was raised in a Christian home, went to a Christian school, wasn't allowed to watch TV. She was clueless, and she was trafficked to the Japanese mafia from Chicago. And so, we must tell our children, if we don't, an idiot out there will. You get to pick. And you need to have those conversations with your daughters pre-puberty, unfortunately. And they now know about oral sex before they know about sex in school. How twisted that is, but that's what we have to do to protect our children as responsible adults.
Okay, any more questions?
Question for Jack. How much awareness of this
is there right here in West Michigan, in Holland area? And what really bothers me is the people who could make them aware are not here tonight.
And you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the building on 8th Street that prints a paper every day.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm here tonight is because I want you to know that this goes on in Holland and Zeeland. And we see it. We see it with families that sell their children, an uncle that sells their niece or nephew. It's happening right in our neighborhood. So the awareness is why I'm here tonight, and just to the more opportunities that we have. Teresa is coming to Engedi Church. I don't know the exact date, but we could get that to you as well. You know, go to the training that WAR's putting on. The more you're aware of it, the more we can do to prevent and educate those that everyone needs to know. So.
We spent 2 hours just on those 15 demographics and how to know the signs, and then the 20 lures and the 20 physical and emotional signs that you would see in your children or your grandchildren or your circle of influence. So that's an 8-hour day where all we do is dig deep and discuss it. It's not a PG-13 day. Parents who ask me if they should bring their kids, I ask them, how much have you said to your kids? Because I want to be sensitive to that as a parent. Even though I may think you should tell your children something, it's still your responsibility to make that decision, not mine. So you can come to that 8-hour training day at the Pinnacle, and there are other trainings. Ours is a little bit more broader because we pull in health people. 68% or 86% of 88, well, I don't know which statistic we're going at, but women who are trafficked go to ERs, and they're not identified as trafficked. And 25% of them go twice. So ER docs and medical people aren't catching it there, and that's usually, they don't go to, medical, like a regular family practice doc. So the ERs have to catch it. And so we're drilling into all the different industries and how to know the signs depending on, I think we give out 30 job descriptions at that training. Whether you're a truck driver, bus driver, school teacher, mom at a sleepover, grandfather, I don't care, postal worker, tree trimmer, my word. There is not a job in this room that cannot rise up and be an abolitionist. And it's high time we do that in this country. We paid a price to get rid of slavery, legalize slavery. And now we have illegal slavery going on behind our backs. And so we need to rise up. And Dr. Martin Luther King said, darkness does not drive out darkness. Light drives out darkness. So turn on the light. Tell people, get the word out, and just open your eyes and you'll start seeing it everywhere.
We have room for, or time for one more question, then we're going to have to cut it off. Mike.
Have you developed a program for junior high, senior high, schools in the area, like Zeeland West or Holland High, West Ottawa? Something being done in that direction.
Yeah, talk to, I'm just going to write my phone number up here.
We have, I have talked to high schools a lot. I speak 300 to 500 times a year. And so I'm speaking less and less to high schoolers. I love to speak to high schoolers because, and college kids. I had Grand Valley college kids in my office this morning doing a documentary on this subject. And they know, they get it. They know what sexting is. They know what pornography is. They don't connect the dots, but they know when you interview them, a 14-year-old, even a homeschooled 14-year-old, knew about her girlfriend who was 14, whose 27-year-old boyfriend was selling her to his buddies. They didn't know that there was a legal term for that, but they know about it. If cops were allowed to interview our kids, they would learn everything. Because our kids know everything. They're exposed. I'm not saying they're involved in everything, but kids these days see everything that you and I never saw growing up. They're exposed on the school bus and in the back of under the bleachers to everything. And so they are aware, they just don't know enough to connect the dots, and they don't know what to do with that information. And so my passion is to give people practical ways. We all care about the subject. We're all horrified tonight, but we're all going out of here going, what am I supposed to do about this? And that's what we need to address. And you can go on websites of any anti-trafficking org and find out, or you can go on ours, and I think we have 30 or 80, I don't even know what the number's at anymore, ways that you can get involved from the sanctity of your home and addressing it in high schools and down into junior highs. And as young as people want to talk about this subject, and I leave that up to the parents, but yes, we do have a program. And we have a person who is raising funding to go full-time teaching in high schools. Salvation Army has a program called the Promise Program. It's very controlled. I laughed at them and said, you really are an army, aren't you? It's very controlled, but it's taught in schools and it's taught to kids. So that's another program out there. I would rather speak to 1,000 teachers than 1,000 kids, because the teachers are the ones that need training, and that's what our legislators need to do. They need to mandate cops, teachers, you know, by the way, you know, the Department of Transportation, I spoke to them, they're mandated to have training on human trafficking, and cops aren't in the state. I don't get that, but I praise them for that.
What is your www? Your website?
Oh, I'm so old. It took me a minute to know. I'm thinking Worldwide Wrestling. WAR International. WAR stands for Women at Risk, and we are fighting a war for our women and our children. WAR International, spell out international.org. www.warinternational.org.
Okay, thank you to all three of you guys. This is fantastic tonight. Fantastic. I think everybody here ought to write down Jack's phone number.
Well, let me just put a caveat on this number. If you're getting pulled over by the police department, but I wouldn't, you know, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have put my cell phone number up in a public meeting, because it's just, you open yourself up to a lot of things. But here's the thing. This is such an important topic, and these victims are so fragile, that if you need to contact me 24/7 about somebody that you're working with, that you need help with, and you need to be pointed in a certain direction or need advice, feel free to call me. And yes, it doesn't just have to be about human trafficking, but I don't want calls about being stopped by the police, but I just want you to give you that and call me. I'll point you in the right direction.
My street wasn't flat.
Hey, all you guys, remember Valentine's coming up very, very shortly. Go back there and check out the jewelry.
We've got a couple more things on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah. I want you to bear with me for just a moment. There's a section we call the President's Report. I'm going to give that up. We've got two speakers. In a couple weeks, we've got the Michigan GOP convention. At that convention, the delegates, the people who are precinct delegates, who will become delegates to the convention, will vote on number of GOP offices, including the chairman of the Michigan GOP. And we have the proxies. Well, we have actually two people here tonight that want to speak about someone running. We'll let ladies go first. Isabel, could you come forward, please? Isabel Terry has been a frequent member, and she asked for a moment.
Yes. I'm Isabel Terry, and I'm a precinct delegate, and I've been elected to state committee in the Michigan GOP, and I'm also vice chair of the 3rd Congressional District. And one of my best friends, and one of us, is running for the chair of the Michigan GOP. And I cannot stress how important this is. This chair position could change the way that Michigan politics goes and brings back the Republican in the Michigan Republican Party. And the candidate's name is Norm Hughes, and he has loads of experience over time, but his heart is where our heart is, with the Constitution, with the Republican platform. It will energize the grassroots in a wonderful way. And Since I've been on state committee the last 2 years, that they have fought us, the party leadership has fought us as much as they have fought the Democrats, if not more. And they have surgically stifled the grassroots, and we can change that this convention. I have never felt more unwelcome in a party that I have been a lifetime member, and this is just huge. I can't tell you, the budget is big. We can steer the money toward principal candidates instead of the yes men candidates. The state committee is staffed in a way that people like me are put on subcommittees that mean nothing. They didn't take one suggestion that I had. Every resolution we put forward was laughed at and ignored. We were lied to our faces by party leadership all the time. They changed the rules at every convention to stifle us. Norm is one of us. I worked with him for 3 years for getting right to work passed, and if he can get Governor Schneider, our very progressive governor, to sign that legislation, you can see that he can coalesce me to the governor, the whole spectrum of the Republican Party. And people say that he won't be able to raise money. The opposition says that. I disagree. I think people are going to say, finally, real Republican in a leadership position in Michigan, it is about time, and they're going to open their checkbooks. And what is the point of raising money when it's used to go against real Republican platform candidates? I think that we're just feeding the enemy by giving that money. So please vote for Norm Hughes if you're going to convention, and or tell your voting delegates to vote for Norm Hughes. This is huge, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Andy Seabold, from up north. North of us, everything's north.
Yeah.
And by the way, there are a number of candidates running. We've reached out to them or their surrogates. We're not, Ottawa County Patriots is not partisan. Jim Chiodo might be, but I'm not going to offer my Andy.
Thanks, Jim. Actually, I did kind of make a misstatement earlier when we were handing around the gift bags. It's not my first time here. I'm not new. It's been a little while, but I did promise Mike Carras. I was the chairman of the Oceana County Tea Party, and he used to pedal his way on a bicycle 60 miles north to Oceana County. I didn't do that today.
It's 3 wheels, not 2.
Oh, well, yeah, you were on the sidecar. So, yes, I finally made it back. I'm actually here tonight for 2 candidates. One is Kim Schmina, and she's a member of the Blue Water Tea Party, which is all the way out east, and I'm the member of Oceana County, which of course is all the way out west. She is a candidate for Michigan GOP state chair, and actually she just chose me here about a week ago to be her running mate. Now she has a website, kimschmina.com, very simple. And you can go there and check out her platform. She has actually one of the most beautiful and well thought out platforms I've seen. She is a nurse practitioner, a doctor by trade, and she laid out the health and vitality of the Republican Party is at risk right now. It's almost like it's being torn apart, believe it or not. And her plan, under the ICU plan, intensive care unit, lays it out like a medical professional would. How do you heal a body? It's an excellent plan. I've got copies if you'd like to see it. And also for Kim's own paperwork, my lovely wife Jennifer, I'm going to point her out in the back there. She has a couple palm cards if you'd like to use those. As for myself, it is a package deal, so unfortunately if I win, this guy's going to have to put up with me some more. Half you know me, half you don't. I do recognize a lot of faces from previous conventions, but it was in large part because you folks here that I was first on state committee 2 years ago. I was on grassroots. And then I was picked up a second time, thank you all, for coalitions. And actually I was just going to drop back and sit with some of our folks here as a delegate, but then Kim picked me up. So I really appreciate your support. 4 quick points on me is I'm a veteran, and I really enjoyed the speakers tonight. I was a combat lifesaver, and some of the signs and symptoms they show we had to look at, we had to look for, and then get them to the right people. So, you know, we have eyes, we have ears, but if we don't know what's going on, we can't send them to these folks. So that was very important. Again, I'm from West Michigan. I think I would be the first West Michigan co-chair in probably since before I was born, which maybe wasn't too long ago. Yeah, well, yeah, you like that. And I was also endorsed as a Liberty candidate when I ran for and won county commissioner. I unseated a 16-year incumbent, which was not easy, but we did it. So I'm actually just on my third meeting this Thursday for the Oceana County Commission. So again, I'd like to appreciate all that we do here in the Tea Party, and hopefully I'll see you at the convention.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks to both of our speakers. Hang on just a moment. Thanks to both of our speakers. Our next meeting is the 24th. It will be Meet Your Local Representatives. We've invited Amanda, Daniela, Arlen, Roger, and
Bill?
And Cindy.
and Cindy, okay? And you know what they're doing and so on and so forth. Remember the 27th? When is the convention?
The 20th and 21st.
The 21st is the state convention.
The 20th.
It's the 20th, the 21st is Friday, Saturday.
Yep.
And on March 5th, we're going to have a community forum on issues such as the Hager Park sign and the Dewey Hill Cross. And what did you have, Jack?
I was just going to say a couple words if I could.
Okay, about a candidate or?
I'm a candidate for state committee.
Oh, okay.
That's
all right, real quick.
I'll be quick.
Yeah. We've heard that before.
Sometimes college professors can be quick. This is my last year at Hope College. I'm going to be retiring at the end of this semester. My passion is promoting conservative candidates and values, and I very much want this country to go in the right direction. I work very hard on the state committee, and I have enjoyed doing that. I believe I can make a major contribution to us carrying Michigan. We have not carried Michigan since 1988, and I am on a mission, and that mission is that we carry Michigan, and we don't have to worry about President Obama or Hillary Clinton. That's the mission I'm on, and anybody who knows me knows when I get on a mission, I will do it. So I very much ask for your vote, pledge to work for you, and I'll stick around tonight if anybody wants to talk to me. And Jim, that's pretty quick for a college professor.
Yeah. Thank you, Jack. We are ending up our meeting. I do want to reinforce, I was thinking, should I go out and buy my wife a dozen flowers? I bought this pearl thing instead. And I didn't have to go anywhere. I didn't have to call 1-800-Flowers. And it's quite beautiful. Okay?
And it's not going to
I would
die.
encourage you all to do the same. There's a lot of lovely gifts back there. Thanks to our speakers. Thanks to everyone for coming. And do tell your neighbors and friends about this extreme Ottawa County Tea Party. You know, they're only one issue. They're all racist and bigots, and that's all they talk about at their meetings. Thank you all for coming.